All right. Well, welcome to the maiden voyage of the Signaler. Friends, my name is Joel Passon, and I'm one of the co-founders here at Sturdy. And I've built a few companies over the past 20 years or so I'm excited to have the opportunity to geek out in this company with some of my favorite leaders from product and the customer and operations side of the houses to share secrets, stories, playbooks, to help you tackle the risks and seize those opportunities in your business. We have a concept at Sturdy, and I think it might resonate with some of you, but flashbulbs are going off in your business at every second, and customers are flooding you with signals about their experiences with your products and your services. The Signaler, our LinkedIn Live kind of podcast mashup here, provides concrete tactics and strategies to help you meet these tough situations head on. And so we want you to be able to use some of this content, practical content. This is a quick hit, 30 minutes, fast-paced, and I'm really excited that Brian Hall has had the opportunity to join us on the maiden voyage here and share with us in this particular content piece, and also just be the first guy into the pool. So I think we should do it. Brian, do you want to say a couple words and introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Joel, and thanks for having me on this inaugural voyage of the Sturdy Signaler as well. I appreciate the opportunity. Hi, everybody. So I have been in this B2B SaaS space for a long time now. Worked for many years alongside founders of early and growth stage B2B SaaS software companies in a variety of different functional areas, including marketing and product management, but really made the move in the early 2000s into this area of customer success. And that's been a real focus of mine, including this past almost 8 years as the founder and president of Crema Consulting. We focus on customer success and product marketing and scaling out those organizations for early and growth stage B2B SaaS software companies. So, and I'm really excited about our conversation today, Joel, because as you and I have been talking about, better leveraging customer data is, I think, a top trend in customer success, and certainly looking at these evolving AI solutions, of which Sturdy is a super important one, and what you're doing with signals should be at everybody's top of the list if you're a CS leader.
I appreciate that. Well, let's get into it today. And, with the name comes great purpose here. But, we're going to talk about our signals. And when we talk about signals, we talk about discrete events that are happening every day in customer interactions. And we're not talking necessarily about face-to-face meetings, but all of those little interactions like chats and emails and, folks giving you back-end calls like these, for example, if we were on a call together, Brian. The signal, and there are 25 of them that in our product, there's many more to build, obviously. But one of the signals that I think resonated with you and I enough to do this inaugural Signaler on is executive change. And when we talk about executive change, it's not just like the key point of contact, the person that bought your software. It's also the person that was maybe the decision maker, maybe an influencer, a champion. Sometimes we call them champions or coaches, somebody that holds the budget, somebody that's the contract signer. For a lot of us, it might be that admin user,
Right.
We're thinking about SaaS products. So when we think about executive change, we're thinking about the people that influence the direction of the account and really want to receive the value of the service or products that we're providing. So that sets the stage for executive view. By the way, we call it new sheriff in town, and that's hence the logo here. But we can talk through really why executive change matters. And I'll let you, I know you're kind of a veteran of this. You've seen it come and go. Maybe weigh in first, and I can follow up with a couple statistics.
Well, I think the key point here is that you, as a customer success leader or as a customer success manager, whenever you learn about an executive change, you just have to avoid this temptation to sort of think it's going to be okay, right? Either hoping it's not going to happen, or if it does happen, things are going to be okay. We're in good with them. The truth is, you can't just assume that for a variety of reasons. But whenever somebody, especially at the executive level, comes in new and is a new person on the business, you have to assume two things. And I think this gets to your first graphic there about the 65% churn within 12 months. Number one, a new leader, if they come on board, they're going to be looking to potentially bring in their own ideas and own solutions that they depended on for success in their career previously. Number two, you have to believe that every solution is going to be scrutinized. Everybody's up for account review, if you will. So those two things help, I think, Joel, contribute to that 65% number you're showing here.
Yeah. I think the takeaway that I get is never take for granted. Even if someone's like, yeah, we're fine. You're never fine. And I think, later in our session, you go through I think there's some bullet points that you have on how to be prepared that we'll reemphasize this. But the thing that we've learned at Sturdy after analyzing lots and lots of data to build language models, we know that on average, 65% of accounts with an executive change signal churn within 12 months. We also know that teams that act on these signals in some way, they go head on into the risk, right? You go right into the storm. Within the first 48 hours, you got to go fast. It's just like getting a lead in a business. Yeah. You go fast, and essentially you have about a 33% more likely chance of renewing these folks. So when the problem happens, you've got to mobilize your team immediately. I mean, there's just no waiting. If the longer time kills all deals, including renewals.
Yeah. And what I love about this, especially this data, the second one, is that this concept of the importance of a customer signal. You and I have talked about different ways of metaphors of describing signals and playbooks. And it's kind of like, the data and the signals are the ingredients, the playbooks are the recipes, right? So the two together lead to some fantastic cuisine. One or the other, one without the other is problematic. And so that's why the two together are critically important.
And I think this is, not to constantly plug Sturdy, but, having been an operator and somebody that's been in charge of customers, I want those signals, those flash bulbs. I want to catch those so that we can run the right place. I mean,
yeah,
like you got to get on the field. And I think this is where the sports metaphors come into play. And I'll let you get yours out first. I've got my own.
Yeah.
But yeah, you got to know now is what we always say. And once you know now, then you can go into action and you can run your play, and you got to run it until
right. And then preparation, right? All great professional athletes, and the greatest of them ever are just terrific at preparation, right? Yeah. And that's kind of one of the sports analogies that we like to talk about, Joel, which is, the greatest ones ever are always ready to understand that there is going to be a situation that goes against them, even if it's unexpected, right? The other team just makes some miraculous recovery that puts you back on your heels. Well, the best players ever understand that, anticipate it, and they know what to do next because they've prepared, they've got a plan that they've practiced before, and they're able to take that situation, anticipate it, and turn it around and make sure that they're prepared to address it in a successful way. So what's your analogy?
Well, I think you may have stole mine.
Oh, did I?
Well, here's the story. Having built a couple of companies, we look at when we onboard people, we did this program. It's called Alchemy. And we would engender people into the business. Like, here's why, here's how we talk, here's how we communicate, here's how we do all this stuff. One of the things that there's a slide that's near and dear to my heart that I remind, especially people earlier in their career, Brian, that when you join a professional organization, you're essentially, I think this resonates with people. You're like a doctor or you're a pro athlete. Doctors, pro athletes kind of have some things in common, and that is they go through a lot of training and a lot of rigor.
Yeah.
They don't show up for surgery without some sort of playbook or outline or checklist of what they're going to do and study those things based on what their protocols are going to be in the day-to-day work. So I talk about, to some groups, the sort of the analog that I use is like, you're a pro athlete. You've got to read the playbooks every day. You've got to prepare. You got to know your industry. You got to know your customers. Before you get on a call with somebody, you have to know. And it's, I think we're saying the same things. It's the preparation piece. So I love by the way, your metaphor of like the recipe. We all talk about CX playbooks. I think those are really, really important to build so people can prepare to understand the situational pieces to protect revenue in a SaaS business. What we're talking about with these signals is these are the flashballs, these are the inflection, these are the go time. This is where the ball gets placed on the field and it's time to move. So
yeah,
I think people probably get the point. You've got to be prepared and you've got to know when to act.
And in a moment, we'll talk about the fact that many, if not most or all of these signals also represent fantastic opportunities.
Sure.
All right. They're not all just negative. This sounds negative, but executive change can be a fantastic opportunity. We'll talk more about that in a moment.
Yeah. I'd like to hear an example. I thought of an example last night. of when I've actually been through an executive change and it turned out it was hard, but it turned out on the other side to be a growth. We're talking about SaaS business. We're talking about subscription revenue. I mean, I've been in a situation where I'm like, okay, this is gonna be a horrible call.
Yeah.
And it ended up, by the way, it wasn't me piloting the call. It was a friend of mine, Deborah. And I saw her turn an account from what looked to be inevitably a churn or a cancellation into an expanded account with a new executive, which was pretty amazing.
Yeah. Those are great situations. So good. So again, this concept of executive change, think that your business is on review, right? It is up for review. You should consider yourself in, if not a red flag moment or red alert moment, it's at least a yellow, right? And we're even talking if it's a 3-year agreement paid annually in advance with no out clause, it doesn't matter. And you're in the midst of year 1, it doesn't matter. This is a big thing and you have to address it. And so the other things to sort of talk about in anticipation of that is probably the greatest defense to any kind of churn risk is if you're driving value, you're delivering on their outcomes, you're executing against their job to be done, however you like to talk about it and think about it with your clients. If that's happening, that's a great defense. And I talk about in terms of this in using this term entrenching with your customers. And there's sort of 3 key tenets I think about in customer success when it comes to driving a value, which leads to revenue retention and expansion opportunities. And it's entrench, expand, and land. And I just wrote a blog post about it, came out a couple days ago. We'll talk about where you might be able to see that at the end here. But the point is, entrench is kind of customer success 101. How do you take what you've learned about what they want to achieve? How do you sort of guide them successfully so that your software is delivering on that outcome, delivering great value, strong ROI, et cetera? Because if that's happening, you already have a lot of value in place with that customer. And so when that executive change happens, you lead with this value, you lead with this outcome. Okay, that's what you start with. It's not about your relationship. It's about the value you've already been driving for that organization and how they're relying on you and your solution to have success in their organization.
This actually brings me to an example that I think could be relevant for our audience, and that is, and I'll even use some proper names and negating any kind of privacy at all, but a company that I started called Newton Software a couple of years ago. Well, we sold the company in 2016 to a really large payroll company called Paycor, but we were kind of a mid-market solution, low mid-market solution. And we had a really big account, and they were called Sunrun, big solar company, still around today, really, really interesting company. And we had sold to the CHRO at the time. I was involved in the sale. Great relationship with that person. Well, that person left, and we were on an annual contract, and it was our biggest account. And the new person that came in was used to using something else, a company called JobVite. They were one of our biggest competitors at the time, and they were knocking at the door big time because this new CHRO had used JobVite in their previous company. Big red flag, right? And I think that's telling. Like, we found out this person was a JobVite customer in their last job, and they called me. I was the VP of sales. I ran commercials. I was going to the meeting. We went to the meeting. Before we went to the meeting, we did an analysis, usage data, how many hires they've made, all first party data that we were allowed to see. And the thing that struck me was that they had, I think at the time they had a couple hundred hiring managers. Well, they had about 180 hiring managers in our platform, trained, using it. There was a feature in there. It was green is go, red is no. If you like the candidate, you hit the green button. If you didn't like the candidate, you hit the red button, and some automated thank you letters would come up. It's pretty sweet. But the thing that struck, we were prepared with this information. And I would say midway through the meeting, I could feel that we were just getting glad-handed. Like everybody was playing nice, but we weren't going to continue to be able to maintain this deal until we brought up the value of the hiring managers and how much time it would take to retrain these people, and that we had an integration with Workday. And you know what? They ended up being, for 2.5 years, continued to be our largest account. We made it all the way through that CHRO until there was another new guard when private equity came in and bought that business. And it was all about being prepared for that meeting and this is just demonstrating your point, having the value statements, how we move the needle for this company and reduce the risk of keeping us. And listening to the person. What do they want to achieve? So going through this conversation of defending value, right? Or proving value or illuminating value, but then turning, and I think you talk about this, and we're going to talk about this in the next slide, actually, but it's about understanding what's important to that person. And you've got to just be present in the moment. And it's a hard conversation sometimes. And
Yeah.
that's my bringing it to life thing. We saved that account. And by the way, we were in that office 24 hours after we knew that Beth was leaving.
Yeah. Awesome.
Our buyer.
Awesome. Yeah. Right. So, so value, obviously, your example illustrates it perfectly, Joel. Value trumps nearly every sort of ill, and certainly it trumps anything else that you bring forward, like the strength of your relationship with somebody. That's really much less important. Just a moment on the right-hand side of the slide, sort of this idea about preparing. We talked a little bit about this earlier. Things like tracking key contact roles in your CRM. Critically important to do. Reviewing those key contact roles with individuals to make sure that you've got the up-to-date information. Really important to do. And then once the change occurs, it's all about having that playbook or checklist in place to minimize the likelihood of churn. And this is where we're going to get into these next several slides, some best practices there. Good.
Frank, did I ever, by the way, I had a question, I always like to bring in kind of books that I've read or stuff, sometimes business books can be a little bit droll, you read the first couple pages and the thesis, but to your point about checklists, I think I mentioned this to you when you and I have spoken before, but the Checklist Manifesto is a great book, especially for operations and I think customer leaders, because playbooks can be really prescriptive. I think checklists sometimes are kind of the way to go. And I think about it like being a pilot. And then this is one of the analogs that the author of the Checklist Manifesto brings up. But I worked for a CEO at a company called Beamer, and he made the entire staff read this book. And at the time, I think there were some groans and, we're not going to do this. But he was, I got to give him credit. Guy's name is Abakar. It was a great book, and it changed the way that I look at this stuff. Instead of building playbooks, I oftentimes just build checklists now.
Yeah. Super focused, and right. And I think sometimes, I've seen this a lot with my clients too. They sometimes think that the concept of a playbook is overwhelming, and the checklist seems more digestible. And it's a great place to start. So again, we want to talk about getting really into some best practices, and we hope what Joel and I share with you these next couple slides. We hope you find one or two things that you think are important enough or simple enough that you could deploy right away. We've talked about some of the preparation steps, but the one I want to hone in on here is the second one, which is this idea of having a preemptive conversation with a key executive or key executives at your client accounts, okay? And it's as simple as what I've scripted out here. And I urge all of you that are in these kinds of accounts where you've got executive sort of sponsors and executives that are important to sort of the decision about continuing on with your solutions, to take this, adapt it to what's best for you. But this is language that simply works. It's about the concept of going to somebody and saying, look, people like you, they change roles and responsibilities. You inevitably will have these great opportunities coming your way, bigger challenges at your company. Should that happen, who's the most likely person to step into your role as it relates to our solution? Okay. Have that conversation with them. Take down what they say is the likely successor, put a last updated date next to it in your CRM, because you're going to want to have that conversation at least annually, and sort of be ready for these situations. It's especially important in these organizations, these huge enterprise organizations, where responsibilities change quickly. Healthcare is one of them. I was talking with Corey Greendale at First Analysis about this. They see this a lot in HR roles, like CHROs. A lot of them right now in the economy, they are switching jobs. A lot of champion churn there, okay? So having these preemptive conversations just helps you, again, better anticipate. This is kind of, along with the flash bulbs, this is other key data that you'll want to capture.
I think this is, people it's kind of cringy. Like, if you think about it, like, you want your staff to have this sort of prescriptive conversation, but I gotta admit, I've been on the other end of this. So a couple of years ago, we bought Outreach. It's the sales enablement tool, and they're starting to do some. Their expansion of their footprint is really growing at the top of the funnel. They're cool company, hybrid company. Mm-hmm. But I had a customer success person. I still remember the person's name. I don't know if they're there, so I won't mention the name. But I had been involved in the initial sale. About 3 months into the project, we were live, and they were checking, did the check-in thing, kind of the warmed over QBR type of thing. And a not so senior CS person asked me this question: how long are you going to be involved in this program until you disappear from the QBRs? And by the way, Tyler Holmes was my head of revenue ops. And if Tyler wasn't as involved, who else would we want to make certain that we knew? So, new features and, value statements and things that we could come out and talk to you folks about, and who could be successors to sort of this relationship of ours. And it struck me when they did it at the time, like, that person's been trained in incredibly well. It made me think, and we gave them basically 3 or 4 people in the business that they could develop some relationship or rapport with based on what value they were driving at the top of the funnel. So I thought it was amazing. I think Outreach does a good job with that stuff, or they did at the time. So anyway, I'll take the, I think this speaks to developing multiple champions. And, we hear it all the time: get multi-threaded. If you want to prepare for executive change, if you are multi-threaded in an account, if you have multiple people that you have relationships with, you mitigate the risk of that 65% churn at renewal time if you're missing an executive. And the other part that for me, again, I've told this story before. If I had customer success, sell or market myself off an island, I'm always going to choose the sales boat. But in sales, and it's just the way it is, I can't change my spots. But in sales, when you're mapping an account, especially at the enterprise or mid-enterprise level, you start to identify these people that you could build consensus with. And I think we need to do the same things on the customer side. And, the easiest way to do that, listen, I know LinkedIn is noisy and all of this stuff, people kind of complain about it, but it's a really good way to connect with people and maybe send a quick note to say, hey, I'm assigned to your account. I enjoy working with your team. I thought it might be good to be connected. And by the way, when you do updates and that sort of thing, those people tend to see the name of your company in those updates. So it serves a couple of different masters.
Yep.
As much as you may not want to be the person that gets out there, or I don't like networking, I wouldn't look at it that way. I would look at it as good customer success strategy to be multi-threaded. And I think it's a good way to do it. So just a practical tip that I thought could be relevant: link in with as many people in the org that you're supporting, and then try to develop some rapport with those folks.
Great points. Good. So we're sort of at the second to last slide, and this is where we get into, okay, the change has happened. Now what? And so these are a series of recommendations, best practices, and we suspect that those of you in the audience are watching this from a recorded standpoint, sort of on demand. You're probably doing many of these things already today. But I wanted to focus in on a couple of ones, the 2 on the right-hand side, because I think they're things that are often forgotten because we're spending so much time just sort of thinking about, we got to save them. The first one is that internal communication is critically important. Okay, when you get a signal, let's say from Sturdy, and this executive change it has happened or is about to happen, it's always important to, at a minimum, bubble it up to your management. So if there's like a VP of customer success, chief customer officer, let them know. But then you've got the plan, you're on it, right? And if it's a strategic account, raise it to leadership level. Okay. The point is, you never want to lose alone. There are leadership can be very valuable towards providing insight, support. Maybe they need to step in. Okay. It's not that you're asking for them to come in and do something that you could be doing, but just letting them know, and then also seeking whatever counsel they might have is immensely valuable.
Yeah.
Okay. The second one is, and we hinted at this a little bit earlier today, executive change can be an opportunity for you to come out better on the back end. Okay. So Joel, you asked sort of for a scenario. I can't think of a specific example, but it has happened, which is an executive that you have on your business today might be a roadblock. They might be hindering you from expanding to other groups within their organization where your software or your solution could drive great value. Okay. So one thing to say is, think about this proactively. Think about it as a revenue generating partner to your sales organization. What are the opportunities with this new executive to perhaps increase the ARR we're getting from this organization? And then number two, where is that executive going?
Yeah.
Can we sort of go along with them and see if there's an opportunity to provide a qualified lead into the sales organization? That's what's being a good revenue generating partner to the sales organization as a customer success team is all about.
And I'm glad you bring it up. I think the way that I know you and I look at customer success is not the saves department or the happiness. I saw somebody post this the other day, like the happiness department, or that's not what we're doing here. I mean, I think that the maturity curve of SaaS, we're on the top of it now. Subscription-based business is pretty much ubiquitous. And the teams that you and I work with, Brian, they're revenue teams. And so revenue teams, good defense does win championships if we want to continue our sports metaphor. And it does protect the hen house of revenue. But we can definitely make an impact on the revenue side, on the new revenue side, on the growth side. And here's the final thing that I would say on it. You get nice things when you carry a revenue number.
Yeah.
Revenue matters. And if you're a CS person, and this is a general comment, and you want a seat at the table, carry a bag, make a number, bring revenue in. And so an executive change sounds risky and fraught with peril. Maybe not. Look at it as an opportunity. Maybe you can expand the account. Maybe you could resell it with a team. So anyway, I know we're about at time, right? So if you want to take us towards the end here and say a couple words about how to get in touch with you and where people can find some more of the content that you read. I know I read it.
Man, thank you.
Newsletter. So tell us more.
Yeah, a couple different things. We have a monthly email newsletter that you can subscribe to. Just go to cremaconsulting.com. On the homepage above the fold, you'll see a place you can click through to subscribe. We have typically 2 blog posts per month, one about customer success, one about product marketing. Okay.
Cool.
I urge you to, if you're interested in what you heard today, to subscribe there, share it. We love it when you share it to other people as well. Secondly, and that's where all our blogs are too. And so all of our historic blogs are there that you can sort of read as well. If you'd like to reach out to me directly, you see my email address, brian@cremaconsulting.com. And then certainly connect with me on LinkedIn too.
Cool. And I'll wrap this up. I think we've managed to do it on time in our first journey here on the Signaler. And Brian, we'll want to have you back. I know there were a couple of signals that you felt out of the 25 that we have commercially today, there were a couple that you thought, hey man, these are good ones. I know it was a tough pick, but I want to say, if you're interested in what we're doing in terms of, this concept of signals, if you want to get signals, you should check out sturdy.ai. It's our website. There's a list of the signals on the website that our head of marketing is so diligently got up there. Just quickly on Joel at sturdy.ai. Always happy to connect with folks. We do write a lot as well, have a newsletter. A little bit about Sturdy just quickly is, we built a customer intelligence platform that collects and analyzes customer generated data. So think about going beyond surveys and gathering all of those emails and chats and tickets and the back end of Zoom calls and Gong calls. And we analyze all of these for signals and the trends and topics that signals evoke downstream. So our product is really heavily relies on AI, and I think it's a product that works really well. It's an AI for business product. It's not generative. We don't write emails or anything like that. We analyze content just from customers in a very private way and a very secure way. So that's what we do, and that's a little bit about us. I'm the head of the commercial side of the business. Would love to hear from you or any feedback about the Signaler, and please keep an eye on for out anyway for the next episode. And Brian, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to work with you. It's a pleasure to do this stuff with you, and I hope we can do it again soon.
I hope so too, Joel. Thanks for having me on this inaugural voyage.
We'll talk to you later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
For more information about Sturdy, check us out, sturdy.ai. Thanks again.